Good morning. What's up, everybody? Hey, what is up? Hi, my name is Jared Ancanan. Welcome to the Jared Cast. I talk about movies, I talk about TV, I talk about a whole bunch of stuff. Here I'm talking about 20 very specific movies. But yeah, it's we're doing a top 20 90s films. I know I was born in 1996, but I have seen, and I have seen exactly 240 90s films, so I think I'm qualified. I think I'm qualified for something like this. No spicy chip today. We're going to take it nice and easy because it's already a very difficult list for me emotionally. Like, I think I unfortunately had to cut a lot of masterpieces, a lot of movies that I think are just wonderful, a lot of movies that I think are just really, really fun and really, really cool. But, there was no room. There was no room in the top 20, unfortunately. Um, so this movie, so like my top 80s list, which I did back when I did the Top Gun Maverick review, my top 20 90s movies will not be like my personal favorites all the time, but they will be ranked in order of what I think is really the best, the top tier efforts, if you will. I think all these movies, it doesn't matter what kind of pop culture impact. It doesn't matter what kind of, how much other people love the movies or how successful these movies were in the box office. I don't care about any of that. We're just going by the pure quality of sight and sound in every single one of these items. I might switch around two of them real quick. Um, but other than that, yeah, let's get into it. The first one, my number 20 of the 90s films, my number 20 is Terminator 2 Judgment Day. I think this is just a perfect sequel. A lot of people believe this should be higher. I think it's fine at number 20. I think it's perfectly fine. Arnold Schwarzenegger gives an awesome performance. Linda Hamilton, amazing as Sarah Connor. And it's just so wonderful. I think there are a couple moments where Eddie Furlong doesn't quite do it for me, but other than that, that's the only reason why this movie's out of the top 10. Other than that, I think this is James Cameron's masterpiece. There's no other movie that's such a perfect combination of like big epic James Cameron-ness and then also wonderfully innovative technological cinema, and then also just really, really beautiful characters and beautiful character developments. I think this is James Cameron at his best. Terminator 2 Judgment Day, I think it's a perfect sequel, a nearly perfect action movie. And yeah, it's also kind of badass. Like, there's this scene where they're being chased in a van. W- Someone is in a helicopter chasing them in a van, and they go through a tunnel in Los Angeles, and the camera crew was like, I don't want to get in that helicopter. So James Cameron was like, fine, I'll do it myself. And he did it himself. And the shots are beautiful and really, really dangerous looking. So I just really appreciate that he put his life on the line for this cinema. And yeah, it's just really awesome gunplay, awesome sci-fi action. Next up, I got The Iron Giant, another really awesome sci-fi film. This is an animated film by Brad Bird, directed by Brad Bird, and it's just an excellent story about trust and friendship and heroism, um, set against the backdrop of the Cold War, which is an era where trust and friendship and heroism was just so rare, and so the friendship um, between Hogarth and the Iron Giant is just so beautiful and wonderful, and still really great animation to this day. Still holds up, and I love it a lot. I think it might be. Oh, I don't know. I'd say it's tied with The Incredibles as Brad Bird's best. We'll see. We'll see if we can compare them later on. My number 18 is Wild at Heart, starring Laura Dern and Nicolas Cage, Willem Dafoe, and a whole bunch of other actors that you might know from Twin Peaks. Yeah, this movie's amazing. This movie's a freaking it's a dream come true, man. I love Wild at Heart. Really not for everybody. It's so abrasive and violent and sometimes terrifying, but it's both a beautiful daydream and a cloudy nightmare. It's just you just got to strap in and stay along for the ride, and uh what you'll get at the end is such a beautiful, satisfying love story of an ending. It's such a perfect Hollywood movie, even though it's very anti-Hollywood in its approach. If anything, it reminds me more of those classic old movies, more so than the classic mainstream 90s hit. Um, my number 17 is a classic mainstream 90s hit. It's Galaxy Quest. Actually, I don't know if it was it a box office hit at the time? Okay, so it was positively received by critics, but it didn't do too well in the box office. However, after the fact it came out, it gained this enormous fandom. And I remember watching it. I was carpooling with my friends. I was carpooling with my friends on the way back from Mexico, and they just popped in the DVD, and so I watched it in the back of a DVD of a car, DVD player of a car, and it was perfect. It was amazing. I've watched it several times since. I've watched it in theaters. I've watched it on DVD and Blu-ray. Galaxy Quest is such a funny parody of uh, of Star Trek, but also of the Star Trek fandom, but it's also kind of a wish fulfillment of the fandom and what and really appreciates and reaffirms their passion and their love for sci-fi television. It's such a brilliant movie. Tim Allen, Sigourney Weaver, Alan Rickman, and many others are just shine so brightly in these wonderful comedic roles. And yeah, I really appreciate Galaxy Quest and everything that that film has done for the sci-fi community. The fact that it even has a fandom to this day, and people still cosplay as those aliens is just it just puts a smile on my face, man. I love Galaxy Quest, and it's just yeah, it's a very competently directed, very wonderful action movie. Even though the special effects are dated, a lot of '90s movies that I love were left off this list because the special effects were so dated, and um, this one it actually works in the movie's favor and works in the style of the movie. So I thought it was really brilliant. My number 16 is Malcolm X. I think this is one of Spike Lee's best movies. So epic, so just thorough. Um, with its cinematic exploration of one man's life and one man's character. And it's also my favorite Denzel performance. Denzel Washington sounds like Malcolm X. Like it's so brilliant. Yeah, I don't even know where to start with this movie. It's so good. um, my number 15 is Scream. This is my personal favorite slasher movie, and it's, I think, Wes Craven's masterpiece. I think it's the best movie he's ever done. I think he kind of touches on like meta themes in his other movies, in his previous movies, but Scream is kind of where he really found a voice for it and really found his own style and his own way of expressing how he felt about horror cinema and how he felt about cinema in general. And it's also a beautiful character driven story starring Nev Campbell, David Arquette, Courtney Cox, Skeet Ulrich, Matthew Lillard. All these fantastic actors are so fun and so brilliant. Drew Barrymore is awesome in the movie too. In the first 5 minutes. Next up, number 14, I have The Watermelon Woman. The Watermelon Woman is this engaging, this super engaging fictional documentary about a documentary filmmaker who goes on this quest to find the Watermelon Woman, a mysterious actress who appeared in films that she watched as a child, but went uncredited in the films. And so I think overall it's just a beautiful story about modern about modern women and about their search for purpose and meaning. And it's very, very cool to see this search outside of a man's perspective and outside of a story that has anything to do with men. I think that's kind of what makes this movie really unique cinematically, but also it's a unique story, and I really can't tell where it's gonna go. And so I really appreciate The Watermelon Woman. Highly recommend it. My number 13 is The Matrix. I think this is, this would be a lot higher on other people's lists. Especially fans of who people who've been fans and who saw it in theaters when it originally came out. This movie's kind of been a fixture of my life for most of my entire life. And I remember seeing most of it on TV over and over and over again. It kind of played on TNT every year, the entire trilogy. But I think I watched it in full for the first time in high school, and then I've watched it multiple times since. I think it's such a fun movie, such a wonderful quest for for a hero's journey. I think I don't think it's that it's as brilliant as other people say, but I do think that or original as other people say, especially seeing the movies that influence The Matrix. However, I think just on its own, it's a really fantastic film. I think it's a really great action film. It's a very competently directed by the Wachowskis and written by the Wachowskis. I love the Trinity and Neo love story, um, even though it's not super developed and super uh, fleshed out in the dialogue. It still plays out beautifully cinematically, I think. Um, Carrie Ann Moss and Keanu Reeves and Lawrence Fishburne and Hugo Weaving they deserve all the praise that they get for that movie and for the rest of their careers. Yeah, it's a brilliant movie, The Matrix. I don't need to tell you that. I think you guys already know. My next up is Audition. Audition came out in 1999, the tail end. Same with The Matrix, the tail end of the 90s. And this movie is still to this day one of the most disturbing horror movies I have ever seen. There are, of course, worse movies that feature torture, that feature mutilation, movies that feature more graphic and more depraved sides of humanity, but not all of them do it with the surrealism angle that this one does. And this kind of heightened sense of what is real and what is dreamlike. It heightens the tension. It heightens the dread for the inevitable ending, and the mystery of it is so painful to listen to and to experience for the first time. It's just a fantastic movie, and granted, there are things that happen behind the scenes that the director did and that the director said that were not so great, but I think the results speak for themselves. I think, despite the people's behavior the filmmaker's behavior and his approach, I think the movie stands as a supreme work of art, as a brilliant horror movie that stands far above the rest in terms of 90s horror. Uh, you know, it also continues to this day. Like, I don't think anybody's ever really touched it in terms of how devastating and powerful that ending is. The movie is not perfect, but for what it excels at, it's on this list. It deserves to be this high on this list because of how far they take things cinematically and how much they accomplish as as a creative team, the cast and the crew. Next up, I have for my number 11, Whisper of the Heart. I think this is the closest Studio Ghibli gets to realism in cinema. I think it's maybe my favorite Studio Ghibli film. I think so. It follows a young girl who is trying to figure out what she wants out of life and try to find some kind of meaning because she's not doing well in school. she likes this boy, but she's not sure about what he feels. It's all very small compared to like Spirited Away or The Wind Rises. Like it's very very small scale, very intimate. But the movie just has this really fantastic slice of life beauty to it that only one other movie on this list captures better. And I think um, it's a singular masterpiece of animation. I think it's just really really beautiful the way the characters move and talk and sing. They sing "Take Me Home, Country Road" in Japanese, and it's the most adorable thing I have ever seen. It's so good. I'm crying just thinking about it. Yeah, I love Whisper of the Heart, man. The ending just makes my heart soar. I saw this 3 times in 12 months, in 10 months actually, and I couldn't get enough of this movie. I think it's so brilliant. I think it's so fantastic, so watchable, so rewatchable. Everybody should watch Whisper of the Heart. Definitely, I think the most underrated Ghibli film as well. My number 10 is Taste of Cherry. By Abbas Kiarostami. Uh, I wanted to include Close Up on this list as well. It's another great 90s Iranian film. But what I love about Taste of Cherry is it's a very different slice of life than Whisper of the Heart. So, for those of you who don't know what Taste of Cherry is about, it's basically so there's this man driving around the city and he's looking for someone to be a worker. And so he picks up these dudes and he's like saying and he's like, "Hey, I need you to work." And they're like, "Okay, cool. I can work for whatever money." And then he describes to them the job and they're like, "What?" And so the job is he wants to kill himself and he doesn't want his body to be he doesn't want to be an inconvenience to anybody. So he wants to dig himself a ditch, uh lie down in the ditch, shoot himself, and then someone else will come around and then the person that he hires will cover the hole. Uh, it's very, very grim. It's very, very grim, but the result of it is this really, really just gorgeous meditation on life and death and meaning and purpose. The different characters that he encounters while he's trying to find this assistant is very very it's a very very interesting search because how can you root for this guy? Like how can you want him to succeed and you don't want him to succeed, but you're so invested in where he's going to go next, where his journey will take him next, what the next person will say to him. um it's just such a wonderful like I can't even describe how good it gets, and especially the last half of the movie. Like, oh my god, it's so good. It's so so good. I don't want to give anything else away. I feel like I've already given away too much because I think that's already the first 10 minutes of the movie. But I don't want to give away too much. It's very very interesting, very very good movie. Um, uh, yeah, it's one of the best road movies I've ever seen, even though he doesn't even travel that far. Okay, and then my number 9 is Heat. Heat, I think, is Michael Mann's best film. It's something that I call a city epic. I think it's the best of its kind. There's obviously other great ones like New Jack City and all those, but what's special about Heat is not just it's it, what makes Heat so special is Michael Mann's style. It's so wonderfully poetic and uh, takes these situations that and these elements and these people and these story points that feel realistic, and then all of a sudden he'll cut to like a night montage and in Los Angeles, and it feels so poetic, so beautiful, so interesting. And the film follows a master thief and a master detective, and kind of their two parallel journeys, ultimately leading to this powerful collision that is just one. It's just so good. So good. Al Pacino plays the detective. This is my favorite Al Pacino performance. You kind of see the little edge that he starts to get in his old age, where he gets a lot more over the top. He gets a lot more. Um, uh, uh, he starts to lean harder into theatricality and into broad theatricalities, and but he's still kind of reserved. He's still kind of the Al Pacino that we know of old, and it also is a really interesting Robert De Niro performance. Like, he's super relatable. You kind of want to root for him, even though he kills people and he's a thief. Uh, you know, um, Val Kilmer's character is excellent. He kind of looks up to Robert De Niro as a father figure and as a mentor, and he's just so cool with the blonde hair, man. I miss the shit out of Val Kilmer, man. I really can't wait for him to come back to be to acting full time. He was amazing in the '90s and in the '80s, and still is, I think, an amazing actor. Yeah, Michael Mann has since done other crime dramas that are amazing, like Collateral, but I think Heat is the blueprint for like epic crime dramas. The Dark Knight is. If you watch Heat, you'll be like, this plot kind of seems familiar. It's because The Dark Knight literally ripped off the plot of Heat. Yeah. Sorry, Christopher Nolan. I love you. You're awesome, but it's Heat. The Dark Knight is Heat. Anyway, number 8 is another crime thriller. It is Perfect Blue by Satoshi Kon. Satoshi Kon's wonderful vision and super original approach to editing and to cinema in general is is singular. There's nobody that's been able to do it the way he does it. There's nobody that's gonna be able to do it the way he did it. Sadly, he passed away in, I think, 2006 or 2007. But yeah, Perfect Blue will kind of it's a Hitchcockian thriller that will make you forget about Alfred Hitchcock. It's that good. It's that good. Um, it's also meta cinematic. It's about a woman's rise in fame and stardom, and meanwhile her stalker gets closer and closer and closer. It's a mystery about her trying to figure out what the stalker's trying to do, where the stalker is, who the stalker is. But also she starts seeing herself. Uh, she starts losing her sense of self, and so the movie does have this meta cinematic quality where the actor and the performer and and the personality behind the actor and performer start to become blurred. The boundaries between all those three elements start to become blurred, and it's just, dude, the I can't even, bro, bro, it's so good. The editing is brilliant. Um, I learned how to edit from Satoshi Kon. Like, he's the best. He's the best. My number 7 is Chungking Express. Yeah, man. Beautiful piece of Hong Kong cinema. It's full of that Hong Kong. I like to call it Hong Kong style. I know it's not what it's called, but that really low frame rate, slow motion, with really high motion blur is just used in a poetic way that's really amazing, really stunning. Tony Leung is he's such a sad boy. He's such a cute little sad boy in this movie. I'm so glad that people are getting to know and getting more familiar with his work now that he became famous in Shang now that he became America famous in Shang-Chi. But yeah, there are so many great performances in Chungking Express. In my opinion, I think it's like a superior version to Pulp Fiction. I just think it's an amazing movie, and it opened the door for so many filmmakers. It opened so many of our minds. I remember the first time I watched Chungking Express. I remember the first time my friends, my classmates watched Chungking Express, and it just totally changed our lives, man. It's crazy. It also opened the doors for a lot of Chinese filmmakers as well back in the day. It's an art house classic for a reason. It's one of the best of all time. Chunking Express number 7. My number 6 is okay. So here's the thing. Like, I had to rank these things in terms of quality, and so like the two that I determined, like I put Fargo and Reservoir Dogs like equal in terms of quality. Um, so it's kind of a tie for my number 6. So even though so it's still a top 20. Um, I had to score these movies individually. And this was the only tie, I think. Yeah, Reservoir Dogs and Fargo are my number 6. Like, I had to, yeah, like I couldn't do one or above the other because I didn't feel like one was better than the other. They're both very, very different. They're both very, very funny. They're both beautifully bloody and really, really violent and extreme sides of humanity. Reservoir Dogs is kind of an interesting like stage play, but put to film, it makes total sense. It's a wonderful work of cinema, beautifully edited, and excellently written by Tarantino. I think to this day it's one of his strongest screenplays. Um, yeah, and it kind of introduced the world to him, and introduced the world to his style. He had only done shorts before that. I think he had written True Romance before that, but still, like, yeah, an amazing, amazing movie. Quentin Tarantino's Reservoir Dogs. The Coen brothers are also known for their work in the '90s, especially in Fargo. Fargo introduced the world to William H Macy and Frances McDormand and Steve Buscemi, and kind of and gave them all like moments to shine. Peter Stormare as well as the Swede, and yeah, it's just, oh my god, I love Fargo. It's just this really awesome battle between good and evil in the heart of Americana in the Midwest, where it's a really unique kind of film noir esque tale. Both of these movies pull from film noir, but both of them subvert it in an interesting way that feels very '90s and influence the '90s and beyond. So I couldn't put one above the other. I couldn't rank one above the other, but both of these movies rank above the other 14 movies on this list. So yeah, it's still technically a top 20. It's just two of them occupy number 6. Um, my number 5 is Goodfellas. Goodfellas came out in 1990. A lot of people forget that it's a '90s film because you don't think of it as a '90s film because it just stands on its own. It's timeless. It's a classic. I think it's pound for pound the best American gangster movie ever made. You got Ray Liotta, an amazing character actor who who shined in several roles since then, and but that's kind of where I first encountered him and his acting ability, and he is absolutely brilliant. The scene where he beats up the guy in the driveway is just, oh, it's insane. It's savage. It's horrible, and it's just absolutely brutal. His conflict with his wife provides endless entertainment, but also just a lot of tension, a lot of really insane, horrible. Just irredeemable, animalistic violence. Speaking of animalistic violence, man, like Joe Pesci's character in that movie, holy shit, man, so good, so good. I love Joe Pesci in Goodfellas. It's cliche for a film major to say so, but yeah, this is, I think, a top 5 Scorsese film for that reason. And yeah, De Niro as well, playing Jimmy. He's in the front of the poster, but he actually kind of takes a backseat role in this movie. I was very surprised when I first watched it. I was like, oh, interesting. Because he's obviously the most seasoned actor. He's the most celebrated actor on the list, but he still gets his moments where he's absolutely terrifying and really, really brilliantly so. Um, yeah, love De Niro in that movie. Um, and the whole cast really fleshes out that world of Goodfellas. I was talking with my coworkers about it. Like, It's a movie that is so deeply human because it was made by real human beings. I remember watching behind the scenes of the rehearsals, and basically Martin Scorsese would watch the characters improvise, watch the actors improvise, and then type up what they wrote, and that became the dialogue of the film. So even though the film is very carefully constructed and very uh, uh, meticulously planned and calculated and edited, um, there's still like there's that extra human touch, something that AI could never do. Because that was the question that my coworkers brought up. They were like, "Can AI replace actors and directors and filmmakers?" And I'm like, "No, no, an AI could never make Goodfellas. This is a movie about humanity by people so in touch with their own humanity, so wise beyond their years. Even at this point, Scorsese, um, um, just yeah, absolutely gorgeous piece of cinema. Um, Pound for pound, the best gangster movie ever, I think, even above Godfather and Godfather 2. Um, my number 4 is Before Sunrise. Very different from Goodfellas, very different from Goodfellas, but I think equally deserving to be in the top 5 of my best movies of the 90s. Before Sunrise is a really awesome like time capsule of early Linklater, early Ethan Hawke, early Julie Delpy, before they became famous, before they became known in the art house circles. They kind of they shone like really really bright stars. They're wonderful as a wonderful creative trio. It's basically about two people falling in love in a totally chance meeting on a train, and they explore the city of Vienna, and it's so sweet. It's so just heartfelt and beautiful and gorgeous, and it's 100 minutes of two people talking, and it's still like better than the Matrix. Like it's great, dude. I love Before Sunrise. Yeah, I can't get enough of this movie. It's so good. I don't even know what to say about it. The color palette, using those pinks and those oranges and those deep dark blues to kind of highlight the nightlife of the city, and kind of make daytime and make sunrise feel and make time not feel like a villain, but feel like like a source of dread. Like I don't want to leave you, but I have to. I have a life. I got to get back to this life, and you see these characters, slowly become more and more attracted to one another, slowly start to see each other's souls, and really just yeah, just open up open up their hearts in a really wonderful way. Yeah, I love Before Sunrise. It's my personal favorite of the Before trilogy, even though I love all three movies. Yeah, and it's probably my favorite Linklater too. Probably. I don't know though. There's a lot of great ones. um, my number 3 is a different talking movie because there's also a war in it, but there's a lot of talking in it. There's a lot of like narration and voiceover and like really kind of poetic stuff. Yeah, it's The Thin Red Line. I love The Thin Red Line. I think Terrence Malick is an absolute madman for trying to do a movie like this. A lot of cast members have come out and said, like, yeah, we had no idea what was going on while we were making this. Like, they were like, okay, I guess we're running now. Okay, I guess we're going to sit here for 5 hours now. Okay. And then one of them, Adrian Brody, a fantastic actor, like he was supposed to be the star of the movie, and he was cut completely out of it. Like he had like something like 40 minutes of footage cut out completely. Um, and this the he switched the main character in the edit. Like he changed the main character to Jim Caviezel's character, and I think the movie is better for that. I think obviously the character is more interesting, but I think it's also a very unique and very it's a very unique and very touching war movie that doesn't feel like a war movie. It feels like despite all of its chaotic elements, there's this beautiful sense of cinematic poeticism that touches the sound design, touches the music, touches the editing, touches the cinematography, and um, Terrence Malick kind of he in Days of Heaven and in Badlands, he kind of gets there, sort of like he's almost there, but he doesn't really, he those movies are great. But by the way, those movies are awesome. But here he kind of kicks it up a notch. He turns it up to 12, and it's so good. It's just a it's it. I highly recommend it to everybody. It's not like the kind of warmongering thing that it might seem to be. The Thin Red Line is definitely something that's not for the faint of heart either. It's violent, it's brutal, it's there's a lot of feelings of desperation um, and sorrow, deep sorrow. But it never disrespects the people who chose to go over there and fight. It never disrespects it never dehumanizes the people that they fought. It's just a really sad movie about life and death and war and beauty and nature and corruption and destruction and creation. Yeah, and faith too, just sprinkled on top. Yeah, it's really good. I think everybody should watch it. Um, my number two is A Brighter Summer Day by Edward Young. I think this movie. So this is a 4 hour Taiwanese movie. Just a heads up. But this movie is basically Goodfellas and Stand By Me smushed together, and it's better than both of them. It is so good. So the kind of the background of it is, it's about the generation of teenagers whose parents left China for Taiwan, and they feel out of place. They feel no sense of belonging. They feel no sense of stability. And so the movie is kind of about this entire generation of children. It follows one main character, but it lets you get to know a whole bunch of characters, a whole bunch of little kid delinquent gangsters, and kind of their adventures and their rise and fall and the violence that they encounter and the brutality of childhood and prepubescent and pubescent existence. It's very good. It's very epic, but also wonderfully intimate. Um, the movie is absolutely breathtaking in terms of cinematography, and yeah, nothing beats it. It's a brighter summer day is very close to being my number one. Very close to being my number one. I also still need to see Yi Yi, which is I think Edward Young's last movie, but yeah, I need to see more of his movies for sure because that guy, oh my God, what a master, so good. I think even Scorsese himself like had A Brighter Summer Day on his list of the best movies of the '90s, and yeah, so good, so brilliant, worth every minute of your time. A Brighter Summer Day. This my number one should come as no surprise to anybody. I think anybody who knows me knows that I believe this is the best movie of the '90s, if not the best movie, the best crime drama of all time. If you can call it a crime drama, it's closer to a horror movie than anything else. Um, but it is kind of a mystery thriller. It's Silence of the Lambs, The Silence of the Lambs by Jonathan Demme, starring Anthony Hopkins and Jodie Foster. Yeah, The Silence of the Lambs kind of raised the bar for the crime genre overall, and it raised the bar for the horror genre as well. A lot of people consider it to be a horror movie, and so it was very. It kind of took the world by storm. Like, so think about this, right? This movie came out, I think, in like February of the year it came out, and it still got nominated for an Oscar. That's insane. So while people were still voting on the Oscars for the year before, they were thinking about Silence of the Lambs. This movie made that big of a cultural impact. That never happens, right? Most of the movies that are trying to win an Oscar are, coming out in the fall, winter. This movie, no, none of that shit. This movie was like, it didn't, it wasn't even trying. Like it was just greatness in cinema, just as on its own. It's terrifying, it's empowering, and it's super super engaging and disturbing and weird, man. I love Anthony Hopkins' performance in this film, as Hannibal Lecter. He kind of turns the movie from a serial killer movie to a monster movie. Like he's on a whole other level, man. I wrote a thing in college about how the entire film, and Hannibal Lecter is playing with his food, and Clarice's journey is about earning his respect so that he no longer sees her as food. He sees her as a person. He sees her as someone worthy of his attention, worthy of his admiration. And that's insane for a narcissist like Hannibal Lecter. Yeah, I think Jonathan Demme's use of first person perspective and medium wide close ups are just so like, yeah, like, Paul Thomas Anderson himself said that he's been trying to chase the Demi close up, and chase that uh, what Jonathan Demme achieved in that movie. Same with Barry Jenkins. It's very very interesting, very very cool, and nobody is able to touch it. Nobody's able to touch Silence of the Lambs. Every other crime mystery thriller with serial killers and murderers and cannibals and and just men who hate women. All those movies are just trying to copy Silence of the Lambs. It's that great. It's that amazing. There's a reason it won the Big Five. Jodie Foster's performance as Clarice Starling, yeah, it's worth every bit of hype that it gets. I've loved this movie since the first time I saw it, and I've seen it many times since. I'll never get tired of it. This isn't just a personal favorite movie of the '90s. Actually, my personal favorite of the movie of the '90s might be a different title than this, but Silence of the Lambs is up there for sure for me personally. But as far as best, as far as what cinematic achievements are, and what this movie did for cinema, I think it's number one for sure. And yeah, that's my list. That's my list of movies. I know it was a long one, but I love these movies a lot. I've seen more '90s movies than I've seen '80s movies naturally. So it was very, very difficult to put this list together. So thank you for listening. If you have listened, and if you want to hear more, you can go check out my top 10 '80s movies. You can also check out my top 10 Lord of the Rings scenes. There are a whole bunch of great lists that we have up here on the Jared Cast. We also have movie reviews, movie analysis, spoiler reviews, spoiler analysis, and Q&As, so you can get to know us better. But yeah, we love you. Goodbye.
Let's go.
What a lovely day!
Andy, there's a whole world out there. Jump in.
Can you dig it?
Yeah.
You must always pay strict attention.
I was just completely enamored by it the entire time.
Dude, he did not have to go that hard.
I know, man. Isn't it wild?
The Jared Cast.